Welcome to the channel. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. Join me on today's video where we'll be looking at another San Martin watch. This one has just come through the door a couple of days ago. So yeah, let's check it out and let's see which one it is. So here we have the San Martin SN0118. Now, while this isn't a brand new release, it is a new colorway. Now, you must be familiar with the SN0118. It's a watch which they've bought out a fair while ago, and they've actually got 7 different variants on this, including this new colorway. And it's because of this colorway, which is why I ordered it. But don't get me wrong, I have seen those watches prior with those 6 other colors. These are the fruit inspired colors. And I have to say, every time I've seen them, I have really I've really appreciated the colors. I've thought, fair play to San Martin. That's something they've done off their own back. I can totally give them, original credits for that, because those colors look like they shouldn't match and they shouldn't go together. However, looking at them, as you'll see them on screen, they do look quite funky. It's very different, it's unique, it's fresh, and as I said, some of the color combinations, they've made them work really well. But this is the one that where I looked at it and it caught my eye, definitely. And you guys who know this channel, who know me, know exactly why. It's because of this black and gilt, or should we say grey and gilt combination. Absolutely does it for me. You can't go wrong with that at all. With regards to price for this particular model, this is available for £154, which I think for a Seiko NH35, dome sapphire, ceramic, bezel insert, etc. It's a good price, okay? It's not overly expensive, and it is like very good price considering it is San Martin, because they do overinflate some pieces. Dimensions wise, yes, this is just around 40 millimeters. To be exact, it's 40.5. Thickness of 12.6 millimeters. You've got lug to lug of just 47.3 millimeters. And a 20 millimeter lug width. You get 2 options in this currently. Without the bracelet version, you get FKM strap, which is a vintage tropical strap, and then you also get a mesh bracelet option. Now, price wise, the mesh bracelet option is £30 more, which I think is a bit of a rub. It might be a great mesh bracelet, however, adding 30 quid on top, it doesn't really do it for me, considering they buy in numbers, they build in numbers, and they can give you that for a bit less than that, let's be honest. So let's start off at the dial, and this dial is the asphalt texture, yes, and it's got a light bit of fume in this. There's a bit of gradient in there, so it's a bit lighter in the center, as you can see, and it does get darker towards the outer edge. Now, I'm not a fan of these asphalt dials, should we call it. However, it does do the job on this watch, right? It looks okay, but I would have preferred something without this texture and just perhaps the gradient, on like a matte dial. Now, I think what also does it for me as well is that ceramic bezel insert. It is ceramic, but it's been sandblasted, and you've got these thin gilt markers in there, which visually, it looks great. I love the aesthetics there. You've also got a chapter ring, which has just got the 5-minute intervals on there, which is nice and simple. It does break up the dial and the ceramic ring. And then you've got your printed features on the dial as the applied features. So you've got a full gold San Martin logo. A bit of a debate ended up happening on one of my last videos about this. It is about a 50-50 split, right? Some people love it, some people hate it. One thing which stands out, not in a good way, is obviously the automatic text. I've spoke about it before. It's just too much in the way. It's too obvious. Obviously, they've done it in white here as well, but they do need to change that font. It might be my preference, but I can't seem to look past that on the dial. And you'll also notice they've gone for the date window, which is beveled, but they've put it at 3 and not at the 6. So I don't know why they've not done it at the 6. They have taken lessons learned, from all the watches they make and the immense feedback they get. They know 6 o'clock is the preferred date, but potentially because they've done it on the rest of the watches, they've kind of stuck to this configuration. Now, you'll also notice the hour markers and the handset, while it is in gold, it is fully polished. It's the same as they've been using on so many watches now. And I don't want San Martin to just settle with, they think they've got a winner design and let's just make everything that looks the same with the same features. You don't need to have signature handset and signature hour markers. And especially with this sandblasted ceramic ring, I feel they could have been brushed, because with that matte effect you get and sort of matte, gradient and texture you get on the dial, there is a fair bit of glossiness from the gold markers. Now, that is again subjective, me being very picky, because as I said, as I took this out the box, I was like, wow, I really liked the looks of it. It does look fantastic. These are just, points for consideration. I think brushing on the handset, especially on the hour markers, would be nice. You do have obviously those bevels on the bottom of the hour markers, but the handset does look extremely flat. It looks very basic. You've got that, Tudor-esque Ranger style seconds hand, which with the red tip is fine. But yeah, definitely needs some more detailing on those hands because they do let this down slightly. Now, in terms of bezel rotation, 120 click, and let's check it out. Yeah, very smooth. From San Martin, it's going to be a totally class bezel. Very consistent. I like the rotation. Just slightly under in terms of resistance, but nothing loose at all. It just means that you can kind of spin it one way, but it's not going to go anywhere by itself. So I do like that rotation. It's quite smooth as well. Now, in terms of lume, it is there, right? You can see it's visible. I think the only problem here is that because the hour markers are so slim, you can't get that much lume on there. So they're just little slithers, right? I think for a diver, you do need a bit more on there. It's not faded, it's not uneven, etc. But you just got very slim slithers of lume appearing. Of course, it's in BGW9. But this is why you can't use the same hour markers and hands on everything, even though the design might look good. Now, moving on to the case. Now, because this watch is around £150, it's not top end for San Martin. That does reflect in the finishing. Usually you get super fine satinized brushing. This brushing is just maybe a notch lower than what you normally get, and you also find that there's absence of polished bevels on the case, which they have included on a lot of their watches, but unfortunately not on this one. And while the case is quite a vintage kind of shape, it's got very well defined lugs. You can see the curvature on that case. You can see just those lines, how crisp they are. Yeah, I think the bevels here would have been a nice touch. And you'll also notice it is a slightly asymmetrical case, and that I find does help with the crown, to be fair, because the crown is quite small considering it's 6mm, but I find these crown guards that do come out a bit on the right hand side, they do help use the crown a lot better, because if this was absent and it was more like that skin diver aesthetic, your finger or your nail would hit up against the bezel and it would be quite difficult to kind of maneuver and rotate. But no issues on the crown. Everything functions as it should. Case back plain, right? And they've stuck with this because even though they're trying to bring back the shark logo, this is an older model, so it makes sense to not add any more cost to it by redoing case backs, etc. So I'm actually okay with that. I can accept that. Moreover on the case, again, yes, the brushing, you can definitely tell it's a cheaper model, should we say, right? But the brushing is very smooth and soft on this side actually, but you can see just a bit more of a grain on the A face. And like I said, I wouldn't call it satin or some of that super soft satin that we see, but more so on the side of the case. Now, there is the absence of drill lugs, as you've probably noticed, and also with this rubber strap that they provided, while the strap is a really good grade of material, you also got this slight sheen on there, which does give you that vintage reflection on those tropical straps. It's a bit of a standard now to have quick release bars, which they have missed. From San Martin, I don't see why they should have missed that. They've got to do the smaller details to kind of keep up with what everybody else is doing, to be fair. So yeah, these are the overall things I can call out so far looking at this watch in hand. And there is one more thing as well, which I don't know why San Martin just failed to address this, and that is we're coming back to sharp edges. So the bottom of these lugs, they're a little pointy, definitely, right? You can just see that edge there, definitely a point there as well. So you'll find these lug tips, they do have a bit of a sharpness to it, whereas the rest of the watch, it doesn't really have that on there. But again, the tips, something they should have learned from this sub homage is that you've got to just, the end bits, you've got to just kind of give them a final refinement. And when you do wear it, this is where your wrist size does come into play, if you're going to feel those or not. Now, just on the strap, point worth mentioning, you've got some heavy detailing on that buckle. You've got stamped San Martin, and this does give you some nostalgia, and this goes back to how they used to have San Martin on the older watches. And yeah, decent bit of detailing on this buckle here. But on wrist, the watch definitely does have a very nice presence. Maybe some understated features on there, but I like overall how it fits. 40mm case is brilliant with that compact lug to lug as well. It sits quite flat to the wrist as well due to those curves. And yeah, I like it. I like this grey, black and gilt combination. It looks really good, really impressive. that tool watch sort of feel to these kind of watches. In terms of the feel of those sharp lugs, because of my wrist size, I don't actually feel it. If I were to press down at certain angles, you can just about feel just some of the sharpness, which is why I think if you had a wrist which was about 7.5 inches, potentially you might feel those tips exactly where they are, kind of digging into the wrist. But I don't know that for sure. So if you've bought one of these models, if you've got a bigger than average wrist, then please feedback in the comment section below, as I'm sure people would be interested. But as it stands, yeah, I don't feel that. And in terms of the options available, I really like this on the vintage tropical strap. I don't think you need it on the mesh, but that's, again, is down to personal taste. If you feel it's nice on the mesh, then go ahead, get the mesh. And obviously the newest one with the bracelet, I do really like how that looks. I really want to see it on the bracelet. So let me know your thoughts, guys, in the comment section below. This is it from me today on the new colorway of the SN0118. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you on the next video.